Hey everyone, and welcome to the Defining Your Life podcast, where we focus on living in our purpose, practicing presence, and activating our power in each moment. I'm Marsha Rell, your resident pep talk provider, and I invite you to join me as we continue to learn, lift each other up, and strive to level up together. Because we are never finished defining our lives, and it takes a village, so let's build one. Stay tuned for the episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to the pod. I hope that your week is going well so far, and if you're getting ready for the holidays, you are managing your time and tasks well and avoiding stress. Thank you to all of you who sent love my way and celebrated the pod with me, whether by sending happy podiversary messages or by sharing your favorite episodes and spreading the word about the pod to other people. I'm very thankful and absolutely felt all the love. And hello to you if you're new. Welcome to our community. I hope that you plan to stay a while. And remember that it's not too late to share the pod. Write us a review, post it wherever you're listening, or even to just hit me up with a topic that you'd like to discuss. Again, this is a community, so all feedback is welcome. And of course, we want to grow through your shares. And so last week, we spent some time talking about the winter arc and knowing how and when to implement no, right? Knowing when you can trust your no, knowing if the no is worth it, and assessing how the no makes you feel. And I want to kind of continue down that same road and talk a bit about staying disciplined in the midst of a season of excess today. Clearly, it's related to last week because being disciplined will certainly call us to say no to certain things. But again, we are channeling discipline and not deprivation. Now, listen. This time of year can be very challenging, not only with all of the events and engagements that we have to manage, but also with tangible things, right? Everywhere you turn, there's a sale or what may look like a sale, and all the things that you wanted have resurfaced in your web browser. And it may feel like this may be your last chance to grab hold of those items before it's too late. And you want to look good and feel good when you head out to all of the end of year festivities. And so you find yourself indulging a bit more in spending, even when you know you shouldn't. I admit that I too have thrown caution to the wind from time to time, fed up with being responsible and reframing my irresponsibility with a, I deserve it mindset to justify my behavior. But as we all know, there are consequences for our actions. And come January, when all that joy of the season has died down, you don't want to be found wondering what happened to your coins, trying to figure out why you're feeling so strapped. Or even worse, you spend the first half of the new year catching up from all the damage that you did in the final quarter of the year before. Now, I don't often talk about financial responsibility on this platform much. That's not my specialty. But as we look toward 2025 and are always looking toward leveling up, there are some things I find myself getting more serious about, and maybe you are too. So I figure let's talk about them. And for whatever reason, financial conversations have been coming up all around me. So this must be a thing that needs talking about. And so in the spirit of starting strong now, i.e. during the winter arc, let's chat a bit about some of the basics around our spending habits. So first and foremost, this is a good time to think about why you feel compelled to spend the way you do and when you do. Of course, there's always necessities, right? There's retail therapy, or maybe a more general social therapy that requires you to be outside, or we think it requires us to. We all know how expensive outside can be right now, right? And you could feel compelled to spend due to your desire to show up for other people, make them feel good with what you're providing for them or gifting them. Or maybe you've truly been presented with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that you feel you just can't pass up. I mentioned a bit earlier that yes, sometimes it can feel burdensome to be responsible all the time. And sometimes we just want to do some or all of the things that I mentioned without having to think them through. But the bottom line is we were given minds to think for a reason. And so we should be thinking about more than the instant gratification we'll get from that impulse purchase or spend. You may be saying, who wants to think about any of that while we're out here trying to tis the season, Marsharell? And my answer to that is you may not be excited about it now, but later when your coins are making dollars because you gave it a second thought, you might feel a little excitement because of what you'll be able to do next. So, what are some simple tools that we can use to improve our spending habits ASAP? Pen and paper. You want to talk about going back to basics? For me, pen and paper is always the way to go. I prefer to write my budget down on paper because it makes it that much more real for me. You know, I've tried apps and I've used Google Sheets, right? But nothing has trumped pen and paper for me. The act of having to scratch out and adjust the numbers, show my work, if you will, that's just really a surefire way to really grasp where you are financially in any moment. But if you thrive using an app or using Excel or at relying on keeping things straight in your head, carry on. But if you are just finding your way into the budgeting space, I encourage you to try some good old pen and paper to get you right. And then leave the budget, right, on your desk or on your nightstand so that the numbers are in your face, because out of sight, out of mind will 100% get you in trouble, especially in this season when spending is traditionally high. In that same vein, I want to encourage you to write down the true cost of items like the gifts you plan to purchase, right? Because a ballpark number does not cut it. Something can be in the ballpark of $200 to $300, but the difference between the 2 and the 300 is a whole 100, y'all, right? You do that enough times, and then what happens, right? That ballpark has ballooned out of control. So write it down, write it down. Next, acknowledge that just because you write it down doesn't mean you can afford it right now. That's the purpose of writing it down, to give you that perspective. And once you have that perspective, adjust accordingly. Maybe you thought you were going to be able to get gifts for everyone, but maybe writing it down makes it plain that you'll need to adjust your recipient list or even refrain from giving gifts at all. Maybe you do a Pollyanna with your siblings, or you just gather together instead. More often than not, folks will be receptive to alternatives for gift giving because they may be trying to tighten up too or make some adjustments. Next, I want to encourage you to wait. Sit with the idea of the purchase for a little while, even if it's within your means to purchase it. How many times have you thought you had to have something and then you actually got a hold of it, and maybe it was still nice to have, but the thrill was gone now that it was in your possession? Giving yourself time to let it marinate before clicking that buy now will aid in determining if it's a need it, want it, gotta have it, or don't love it as much as I thought I did. And if you know that you are someone that has trouble passing up a good deal, or, you can't resist, you may need to put some parameters in place. So turn off notifications, unsubscribe to the emails with the updates, uninstall the apps, whether that's Amazon or TikTok Shop, right? Do what you need to do to keep your eye on the prize. I'll share this quote from Stephanie Lahart today. She says, "Excuse me while I save, invest, and build wealth." Now, y'all, that's not something we can say if we aren't disciplined in our spending and fall prey to the advertisements, right? The idea of what it girls look like, this idea of arrival and excellence based on the names we put on our backs, the bags we carry, and all of the other modern day pomp and circumstance. Nice things are very nice to have, of course. I enjoy a nice thing or two. But what are you sacrificing to gain those nice things? Are you compromising financially flourishing or your financial security? Are you compromising your plans for the future if you don't want to work forever? Maybe contributions to the education fund of your children. Is your lack of control keeping you from the things that really matter most to you? What are your financial goals? Getting back to that pen and paper, have you written them down? Have you prayed over them? Not just asking that they come to be, but perhaps asking for the strength to be a good steward over what you have in preparation for what's to come as well. If this is an area of struggle for you, you have to be honest with yourself about it so that you can make the shift and focus on doing better. We must be intentional about what we desire and how we intend to get it. If we're struggling, we may need to set some boundaries to help us get there because it doesn't not happen by chance, but it most certainly can happen on purpose. And if you're like me and you have some loftier financial goals or expenses coming up, I encourage you to start thinking about and acting on them now. January may be too late. So let's set ourselves up for success. If you're on that financial hamster wheel, it doesn't matter how much money you're making. It takes the same discipline for us all to do a little better with what we have. So if you're serious about this journey, take a look at the show notes. You'll find some links to resources that I deem helpful, including books and podcasts for inspiration. But let's come out of this season of excess in the positive. No deficits over here, y'all. 2025 won't know what to do with us when we get there already filling our bag. Thanks so much for listening today. If what you have been hearing has been beneficial, please share it with someone else who could also benefit and let me know if you found it beneficial because I'm always happy to hear from y'all. I can't wait to chat with you again next week. Take care until then.